Okay, hi everyone, it's Grant Abbott speaking, and we might as well dive straight into everything. Today's a little bit more technical session. I did an investment strategy session a couple of weeks ago, talking about the ATO Blitz, what to do, and all that. And my mind has changed quite considerably since that time. Not that I was wrong then, but obviously things move on and time adjusts, and you have a look at other commentators and we're getting lots and lots of questions around investment strategy. So, my goal over this session is to find out where we are now, where the tax office is now, where they may be going, more importantly, where we are as advisors in terms of doing an investment strategy, where auditors fit into the whole process, and then more importantly, that if someone gets a letter like this, what needs to be done about it. So let's start at the start and have a look at the letter that was issued on the 29th of August to 17,700 trustees. It looks as though from feedback that obviously was in relation to property, but also potentially LRBAs, given there is around about that many LRBAs in the marketplace. So when we have a look at that, obviously the Commission is targeting one specific area. And if we are dealing with LRBAs, we need to obviously encompass insurance strategies, cash flow, and more importantly, canvas borrowing, and also have a lot of information around diversification of the property market. So I will be focusing in heavily on property, but notwithstanding that, there's still obviously issues around not property, but having any investment that's essentially diversified. And for that matter, probably having any criteria when we have a look at around the investment strategy. I gave my first ever investment strategy course in 2001. We did an investment module. I think it was down in Manly, or it might have even been in Melbourne, and we had 4 days just going on investments, what investments could be in, what couldn't be in. And now, some 17 or 18 years later, we're now finally getting focused in on investment strategies. Now, in those days, it was very early days of the Commission taking over. We've seen a bit of a change in tune, which I want to address. But anyway, this letter, some of your clients may have received this. If it is, I'm going to give you a solution for it. If you haven't, you're very lucky, but it still doesn't mean you're out of the woods, because this whole investment strategy issue is now being brought to the attention of the audit community. And more importantly now, if you have a look at what I've delved in to the investment strategy, and I'm happy to give you guys a sample, when we started having a look at that compared to what traditionally has been up and around as investment strategies, we find that there's certainly wheat versus chaff, and I think we need to, as a business, particularly given that there's strict liability provisions where a client can sue you for economic and investment loss, because the document you purport to say is investment strategy is not investment strategy. Anyway, we'll go down that track and have a look at it. But anyway, we've got Dear Trustee, and of course, anyone who's got a self-managed super fund, or let's face it, anyone who receives notification from the tax office at any point in time around issues, particularly with their largest wealth creation tool or their family wealth creation vehicle being the SMSF, obviously would be absolutely scared, particularly when we have a look. So we've got our records indicate your SMSF investment strategy may hold 90% or more of its funds in one asset or a single asset class. So again, they're not quite sure, but they're just saying what we indicate. So obviously it's a broad brush, throw it out, see what happens. This means that your fund may be at risk of not meeting the diversification requirements as outlined in the operating standard of the SIS Act, SIS regulations, which I want to have a look at shortly. As a trustee, you're ultimately responsible for ensuring your investment strategy meets the requirements under the law. You could also be liable, I love this one, you could also be liable for administrative penalty of $4,200 if your investment strategy fails to meet these requirements. So what you need to do, so the Commission is telling you this is what has to happen, so you've really got no choice. You need to review your investment strategy to make sure it complies with the law. In particular, you need to be able to provide evidence, so it has to be in writing, ideally within a written investment strategy, of how you consider the following: diversification of your fund investments, the risk is associated with an inadequate diversification within the context of the SMSF's investment portfolio, the making, holding and realising and the likely return for your investments having regard to your retirement objectives, So again, we'll have a look at that. And expected cash flow requirements. The liquidity of your investments, meaning the ability of the fund to pay benefits as members retire and pay other costs incurred by your fund, and whether to hold insurance cover for one or more members of your SMSF. Have your fund's investment strategy ready to provide to your SMSF's approved audit as part of your next audit. So it's essentially going to be 2019, 2020 for the current year. But obviously this is going to pop up for 2018, 2019. And I would say that is problematic where there's a lot of issues going to be involved. Then the auditor's actually got to form an opinion on your fund's compliance with these requirements. What happens now? Well, good on them. They're going to be effectively writing to the auditor. You should also be aware that if your auditor identifies that you've failed to rectify any non-compliance with the requirements listed above, which is pretty hard to do if your investments sit outside, this could result in the imposition of the above-mentioned penalties. Likewise, if the auditor issues a non-compliance notice, that effectively puts the fund, makes the fund non-compliant unless the commissioner considers otherwise. So that was effectively what we received and where we've been at right from the start. So when we have a look at it, we're in a sort of, to me, a brand new ATO and Auditor Light is on investment strategies. And although we're looking at LRBAs and property, it goes beyond that. We're looking at the whole investment strategy per se. Now, just while we're here, I just want to do a bit of a plug. If you haven't registered for my roadshow coming up in October 2019, I think it's the 15th in Adelaide, 18th in Perth, 21st in Melbourne, 23rd in Sydney, 25th in Brisbane, and also the Gold Coast on the 28th. Make sure you do so. I've got some amazing strategies, 20 strategies or more, and I'm going to show you not only how to do them, but client communications, how to put them in practice. And look, I've got some awesome ones to show you actually how under 50-year-olds can go ahead and set up a self-managed superannuation fund, particularly for that next generation that are coming into SMSFs and still have access to their super. So it's called my golden strategy, and I'll be unveiling it on that day. So if you go on and register, just register as a Lightyear Docs user, and you'll find that the cost is $145, which is for 6 CPD, so you're going to love it. Anyway, just going forward, is this the new ATO norm? So if you remember way back in 2015, 2016, the issue of low interest and zero interest loans came up. And then effectively the Commissioner said, look, it's okay for Section 109 of the SIS Act, which talks about arm's length, effectively as long as there's no excess monies going out of the fund, then arm's length is an issue. Didn't say there was an issue with sole purpose test, and there also wasn't a contribution. So effectively the Commissioner gave a thumbs up for SIS Act, but then started to delve into the non-arm's length provisions in the Income Tax Assessment Act. The original guideline, PCG 2016/5, has now been superseded by the NALI rules, but effectively NALI still brings in PCG 2016/5, saying that it is an arm's length arrangement if you meet there. But quite apart from that, you can meet commercial conditions, etc. And I will do some NALI. I've got quite a few NALI examples to wheel out to our I Love SMSF subscribers in the next few weeks. So, but now it looks as though we've done that. Now the Commission is actually turning to property LRBAs and SMSF and looking at what is an investment strategy. We saw in that letter, it's very short, sharp, and says, look, this is what you need to provide evidence for. If you don't, then the auditor is going to effectively create a non-compliance. But exactly at the same time, when we have a look at, effectively, if we go in and have a look at, where are we? Well, I have a look at 4.09 of the SIS regulations here, the operating standard investment strategy, which is what the Commissioner talked to. We've got quite a bit of stuff there. So we've got the trustee entity must formulate, review regularly, give effect to investment strategy as regard to the whole of the circumstance of an entity, including but not limited to the following: the risk involved in making, holding and realising the likely return from the entity's investments having regard to its objectives and its expected cash flow requirements, The composition of the entity's investments as a whole, including the extent to which they are diverse or involve exposure of the entity to risk from inadequate diversification. So, for example, one of the risks, if you're solely in cash and you're paying an account-based pension, which requires over time a higher PVF, a higher amount that's coming out each year, and cash rates are 1.8%, then that needs to be covered in the investment strategy. The liquidity of the entity's investments, having regard to its expected cash flow requirements, the ability of the entity to discharge its existing and prospective liabilities, and whether the trustees of the fund should hold a contract of insurance that provides insurance cover for one or more of the members of the fund. So that's the general investment strategy rules. Also follow section 52B 2F of the SIS Act. So they're much the same, but the perspective we're getting here is the Commission is focusing on one area of the investment strategy, which then is requiring auditors to look at those investment strategies for clients who have got obviously property and they need to be beefed up quite considerably. That when the auditor looks at that, they then need to turn their attention to all other investment strategies, not only ones that have got a large asset class, such as cash or equities, etc. They need to turn their attention to the whole of the investment strategies. So it's a very clever manoeuvre from the Commission to actually put the auditors in the spotlight. I just want to cover here while I'm here. 3, an investment strategy is taken to be in accordance with subrogation 2, even if it provides for a specified beneficiary or class beneficiary to give directions to the trustee where the directions relate to the strategy to be followed by the trustee in relation to the investment of a particular asset or assets of the entity. So in that one, we can actually have separate investment strategies, and I want to come back to that one very shortly. So we can have an investment strategy for the whole fund, and when we have a look at it, we can also have investment strategies for particular classes of members, say pension members, or we can actually have it for specific members themselves, specific superannuation interests. And I think that's absolutely crucial because I won't have time to go through it now, but I will be coming out a little bit later on. I'm just building a sub-fund or a member investment strategy at the moment, particularly having regard to the, in the NALI legislation, there was also inclusion in there of effectively in a member's a pension transfer balance or their general transfer account or superannuation account, effectively any value that might be ascribed to an asset that might have a liability like an LRBA, that's still to be brought into account for general superannuation purposes, particularly for non-concessional, concessional, obviously T-bar. So we've got to be very careful that in the fund, if we've got younger members, and look, that is the way forward as we go down the track, that if some of the younger members are doing LRBAs and it's in a pooled investment strategy, that will bleed over to the older members of the fund. So we really need to put in place a sub-fund, and that's where this 4.09(3) actually applies. So let's just go back, have a look at what is a strategy. If I have a look at effectively the strategy or the dictionary definition, a strategy is a plan or course of action to achieve a certain goal. If it's a plan that actually is, we look at a goal and effectively what we want to do there is we want to be in a position of achieving that. So for example, let me just take a simple one. So if we look at this year, so we're in the current financial year, if your goal is to bring on board, let's say we start at the start of the financial year, my goal is to bring on board 30 new clients. And then what we're going to do is we're going to have a strategy for that. So how am I going to have a strategy? Well, one is I'm going to seek referrals from clients. I'm going to do Facebook ads. I'm going to do seminars. I'm going to do this. And then you work through, will that give me 30 new clients at year end? Obviously, when we come around to 30 June 2020, we can have a look and we're soon going to know whether our strategy and our goal of getting 30 new clients was achieved or not. Compare that to, for example, we go out to March 2021, and then we say our investment strategy was to bring on 30 clients as at 30 June 2020. Now, quite clearly, that's not a strategy, that's a historical record. An investment strategy is a forward-looking document. So the mere fact is that if you've built an investment strategy, and it can be ratified as if you've done it verbally for 2018, 2019, but if you're doing an investment strategy now for 2018, 2019, it hasn't been evidenced or been done in writing, then we've got major problems, because that investment strategy need to be put in place at 1st of July 2018 for the 30 June 2019 year. Likewise, the investment strategy for 2020 needs to have been put in place now. So I'd strongly advise, particularly for those of you who've got clients who are impacted by that letter that we saw essentially puts us in a perspective that really it's identifying 30 June 2019 as well as 30 June 2020. So there needs to be a bit of scrambling done to make sure that we've got an investment strategy. Now, if we haven't put one in place and we can't, if we don't want to backdate a document, then we need to do a ratification that this is what the trustees of the fund were putting in place. Again, as I said, you can't go out in the future and look back and say that this historical record is an investment strategy. For that, the reason I do that is if I have a look at the relevant law, and I'll just get you out of there, and we'll go and switch to the SIS Act. Again, this is 52B that we saw. 54C provides that, sure, I haven't got the updated Act. Section 55 provides, if you can see that, a person must not contravene a covenant contained or taken to be contained in governing rules of a super entity. So investment strategies, which are section 52B 2F, effectively are a covenant that's taken to be contained in the governing rules. So subsection 2 says a contravention of subsection 1 is not an offence, and contravention of the subsection does not result in the invalidity of a transaction, which is good. Now, what I want you to do is just direct your mind. Hopefully you can see that on screen. Subsection 3. Subject to subsection 4, a person who suffers loss or damage as a result of conduct of another person that was engaged in contravention of subsection 1 may recover the amount of the loss or damage by action against that other person or against any person involved in the contravention. So, for example, if you prepare an investment strategy now for a client, and I want to go through that very shortly. So we prepare an investment strategy for the client now for the year ending 30 June 2019. Then what happens is the market falls. So what we've done is we've found that, at the start of the year 2018, 2019, the clients lost, 10% on their underlying investments. Now, the issue then is that investment strategy, because if we go through prima facie that if it's not an investment strategy, then what happens is if we've promoted that because we're the person who's actually contravened the provision by saying this is an investment strategy, the members of the fund can come back and say, well, hold on, that's not an investment strategy, it's a historical record. And as a consequence, I can recover any losses, being those investment losses, recovering them against the person who promulgated or promoted that investment strategy. More importantly, you'd also be able to recover, obviously, any fees as well. But there is a defence in subsection 5, and that provides it is a defence to an action for loss or damage suffered by a person as a result of the making of an investment by or on behalf of a trustee of a super entity. So again, that's just the issue I just covered. If the defendant establishes the defendant has complied with all of the covenants referred to in sections 52 to 53, so that's the investment strategy, and prescribed under 54A, and all the obligations that apply to a defendant in relation to each act or failure act that resulted in the loss or damage. So that if there is an investment strategy, investments have been acquired in line with that investment strategy, then you can use subsection 5 as defence. But if there is no investment strategy because it's a historical record, then in effect we have got a major problem there. So let's go down and have a look. So a client has got this letter. We're obviously doing a little bit of a scramble there. The first thing is the client's calling us. And so when the client calls us, there's obviously an issue there for the client in that, what they're obviously majorly concerned about it. Now, with all due respect, you might go back to them and say, look, don't worry, it's not a big issue. Unfortunately, it is a big issue. Not only the $4,200 fine, also potentially under 42A of the SIS Act, the funder is non-complying, but more importantly, that if you're fallen foul of a breach of the covenant by claiming it's an investment strategy, then you're caught. Just while we are on that, and I haven't got time to go into it, but essentially where we complete an investment strategy, we're completing that for the trustee of the fund. Does everyone follow that one? The investment strategy, we had a look in the regs, 4.09 basically says the trustee of the entity must formulate. So this isn't advice. If I said to the trustee of the fund, look, I can help you do an investment strategy. Now, when I do that, I'm helping the trustee, not the members, because this is a compliance issue under the SIS regulations and SIS Act. Now, when it comes down to the Corporations Act, a financial product is where I've given money to someone and they go and invest it on my behalf, and I have no control of it. So, for example, if I go to a real estate agent or I go to a vendor and buy a property of someone, or go to a real estate agent, the real estate agent says, look, Grant, this is amazing property, it's going to do brilliantly investment-wise, etc. I suggest that you should make that underlying investment. And if that was me ordinarily, that is not a financial product. It's actually excluded from a financial product. The same in an SMSF. If you screw property, you can't be caught from the Corporations Act point of view, because it's excluded because I've got control over it. The same way as gold is the same. But if I tell a client to invest in BHP shares, then that is quite a different thing, because someone's giving over their monies and it's going to the control of someone else, which is the board of directors of BHP. So that is classified as an investment per se. Now, when I give advice to the client around the investment strategy, there is no giving of specific investment advice for that investment strategy. You'll see when we go down, and I'll show you our investment strategy, the Light Year Docs one, that effectively when we have a look at that, it's not looking at specific investments, it's actually looking at effectively the broader asset allocation. So it's not classified, brought under account under the first rule of being a financial investment under the Corporations Act. The second rule is that even though it's not an investment, it can be deemed to be a financial product if it's a superannuation interest. And that then flies back. A superannuation interest then goes back to the SIS Act, and I'll just take us up there, and takes us down to the definition of the SIS Act under section of a superannuation interest under section 10.1. So when I go under section 10.1, sorry, I'll get there. Okay, 29. I'm getting there. Sorry about this. It's such a big act. Can you believe there's 2,800 pages dealing with self-managed superannuation? Self-managed superannuation is crazy. So when we have a look at section 10.1, and we have a look at, we are getting there, we have a look at what is a superannuation interest. Let me just go down a little bit further, and I think we're going to be right. Okay, there you go. How good is that? A superannuation interest means a beneficial interest in a superannuation entity. So a trustee doesn't have a beneficial interest in a superannuation entity at all, unless it's investing in another superannuation fund, which is not the case. So superannuation interest is only where you're dealing with a member's interest. So hence, when I deal with a trustee investment strategy, it is never, ever going to be a financial product which requires a statement of advice, etc. Now, of course, if you start going down to specific investments, then obviously you're caught. Now, there's two ways of looking at this. First off is that many accountants don't really want to go into dealing with benchmarking, etc., given obviously the issues around section 55.3, the loss or damages. And certainly financial planners are in a great position to give advice around investment strategies. The problem that financial planners will have is that if they do go down this track, and if their clients have received an advice in relation to property, then effectively it's very unlikely that their licensee is going to be that happy about them doing it. So if it's combined planner versus accountant, then obviously on the accounting side, you'll basically be looking at that. So there's a couple of solutions I've got there. Again, that's the roadshow. If you're interested, make sure you come along. So if you go to our support centre, so this is on Lightyear Docs, so it's lightyeardocs.com.au. You'll find there's a button called Support Centre. You'll see up here, see it says Support Centre. There's a roadshow if you want. You'll go there. You've got a lot of how-to videos. We've got, last week I did a great one on special purpose 1322C trusts. We did the investment strategy one back on the 12th of September, so that was a while ago. So this is the next upgraded version of it. So you can go and have a look at that if you want. Just one thing, on Thursday this week at 10 a.m, if you're interested, I will send you through a link, but we're rolling out our enduring powers of attorney across all the states in Australia. So we'll be showing a couple to start off with and then rolling the rest out over the next couple of weeks, which will be super exciting because of all the things you can do with enduring powers of attorney. If you know, you can actually run a self-managed super fund when we go to 6 members with only one member acting as trustee of the fund. So it's going to blow your mind, and all of those strategies we'll be looking at the roadshow. But look, make sure you tune in for that on Thursday. Anyway, what I want to do is I just want to go have a look at all those videos. When we go and have a look at our client documents and advice toolkits, which are increasing, we've got first the client upgrade letter. So that's if we want to upgrade the deed of the fund. It's not a bad idea if we have a look at it. I've got, for example, if you just bear with me, I've got, this is my latest deed that I've built. And you'll find it's much shorter than any other deed I've built, and it's got like all the bells and whistles and lots of strategies. But in the deed itself, 2.10, trustee invest monies of the fund and maintain investment strategies. The trustee must invest monies of the fund in assets and other investments and set and maintain investment strategy as per this rule and in accordance with the superannuation laws. So by writing it that way, effectively it takes into account 4.09 and obviously 52(2)(b). The trustee has the power to invest on behalf of all members of the fund generally, or enable members to maintain a separate investment strategy and hold specific investments within those investment strategies. Remember, and that came from SIS regulation 4.09. So you can actually run one investment strategy for the whole fund. You could run one for pension, one for accumulation. You could run one for TRIS, one for accumulation, one for pension. And if you've got different pensions, for example, you might have a pension that's loaded up with tax-free component, then we could run one for that compared to another pension that's taxable. So we can actually do it for all of these different interests. You'll also find there, obviously, it talks about insurance in there. The other one that's I think is pretty important that I put in, and you'll see a lot of this, I'll be getting a bit of press over this, particularly in light of the NALI rules. And you'll see this on the roadshow, which it might be a little bit advanced for you at the moment, but at least take it on board. So the trustee can create sub-funds for members under these rules and as allowed under the superannuation laws. Fund members have all rights and entitlements as contained in the members' sub-fund. These may include, but not limited to, the accumulation of superannuation benefits directed and dedicated to that specific member. So that's obviously contributions, investment earnings, etc. The payment of a superannuation or other benefits to the member. So that could be, for example, a lump sum or a pension. So that could always come out of the member's sub-fund. Who the member appoints as a replacement trustee or director of the corporate trustee in the event of death or legal disability. So that's absolutely crucial, and that goes to the executorship, who's the executor and who's actually appointed and how they appointed under the trustee. So what happens is in this document that we're building in this member sub-fund, we can have notification of the executor being automatically appointed as trustee. If it's silent, then if you have a look at all the Katz and Grossman, Donovan, then effectively it's going to fall out. And this is going to be crucial. I will be spending a good portion of the roadshow looking at estate planning. So at the moment, I'm building wills and testamentary trusts for you to use, and also a new concept of SMSF testamentary trust that comes out of the SMSF. Here, the investment strategy of investments that may be held specifically for the member or one of the members, more of the member's superannuation interests. The member's enduring power of attorney. So when we do an enduring power of attorney, it can actually form part of the sub-fund for a member. And the reason I do that is that the enduring power of attorney sits outside, but if we're going to get that person to be the replacement trustee, and I'll look at this more on Thursday, then it makes sense that it actually becomes part of the sub-fund. So it sits in the member's file in the sub-fund, which also means it's then protected under the SIS Act. The members' directions as the disposal or use of their superannuation benefits in the event of their death, an SMSF will or mental or physical incapacity, SMSF will, you can actually put the members' will, health directives, so on and so forth. So they can all fit in the sub-fund. So that's just a normal part of our deed, but it's a really very, very powerful part because, as I said before, it's protected by the SIS Act and also the Commonwealth Crimes Act. And of course, Section 55, that if there's any breach of any of these things, because once they become part of the sub-fund, they become part of the governing rules. If there's a breach, then we can then recover under Section 55(3), of course, which is, again, a powerful reason why I'm going down this track. Anyway, let's go back just to the documents. As I said, it's probably not a bad idea if you are going to use our investment strategies, etc. A lot of our guys are actually using to upgrade the deed. It costs $99. Investment strategies $49. It normally used to be $99, but we just made it $49. So a lot of people are doing the upgrade of the deed and also the investment strategy. So it's not a bad idea to bring them both together because our investment strategy fits perfectly well into our deed as well. So have a look at it. These are all Word documents, but the investment strategy, so this is for the clients. So you can either use it, as you can see there, it's just download as a docx file. And we will get to, as you can see there, I'm having a look at things. So this is a sample SMSF investment strategy indemnity letter. So if we go through, and I've got a lot of blurb there on it, so have a look at it. You can download this. There's no cost. It's just a Word doc. Feel free to use it. I don't care if you're using it for someone else's investment strategy, but you know, I have done all the hard work and hopefully we'll be using our one, which I'll show you shortly. So urgent commission and taxation blitz on fund investment strategies. Now, I haven't talked specifically about property. I've talked about general because you may want to send this letter to all of your clients, which a number of our accountants and administrators and planners are doing. So a number of our clients have received letters from Commission of Taxation stating that, and remember we saw all this, so I'm not going to paraphrase it. Now, importantly, an investment strategy is a forward-looking document, and the trustee must have one in place for the income year ending 30 June 2020, and likewise 30 June 2019. So this should be completed in the next 60 days before we advance any further into that financial year. Given the Commissioner's splits on SMSF investment strategy, the responsibility of the trustee to complete one for 2019-2020, the possible $4,200 fine, we highly recommend an implementation and review of the current year's investment strategy. Now you can change that if you wanted to, so complete one for, if you wanted to, you just simply say for both the 2018-2019 and sorry, because it's not enabled editing, so sorry about that one. If I go through, I've got to enable the editing, and now I can go back here, and again it just shows you there. So I haven't been locked out. You're not going to be locked out. So complete one for both the 2018-2019 and the 2019. So if you want to do that, just put that in place and send that out to the client. Now the fee for this service will be $350. I've had some people charge $400, $450 given the work that needs to be done. It's important to complete this task immediately, blah, blah, blah. So if you want to do both, and charge them $450 or $500, but it's up to you. Now, this is the important point. Can you please tick one of the boxes and sign underneath? Now, remember, my philosophy is that you're not going to be able to get a beefed up investment strategy just for the people who receive this letter, give it to the auditor, because the auditor is going to look at that and say, well, hold on, you can't go with a lower standard for the rest of investment strategy. The Commissioner is very smart because he's bringing investment strategies all up to a certain level. Now, we've got the first one. The client can either hereby seek to proceed with a detailed fund investment strategy review preparation. I'll take you through that. Or no advice review because they don't want to pay the cost. If that's the case and they tick that box, they're also ticking, and we need to get them to sign it. We hereby disclaim all liability for damages, costs, and any fines for our professional SMSF advisors in relation to funds investment strategy in event of any compliance litigation or ATO action. So you're getting yourself an indemnity there against the operation of Section 55(3). So either go in or they go out. It's up to them. Now, if you don't want to go down that track and you want to help them because they're your clients, you don't want to see them being picked up by someone else, you can do it a different way. This is a trustee questionnaire, which you might want to send to all your clients anyway. And in this trustee questionnaire, again, we can go through that enable editing process. So this is something I did after the last session. So again, you can just download it. It's a Word doc. So this is going from you to the trustee. It's like it's sort of similar like a newsletter. Introduction, Commission for Taxation is really the trustee that says among blah, 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 blah. So importantly, investment strategy is a forward-looking document, blah, blah, blah. Please complete the following table. The purpose of this table is to develop your fund's investment strategy as required under super law. So what I'm doing is getting them to actually do the work for you, and then you're simply doing it as a record-keeping or record-taking exercise. So there are a number of asset types in the table, and all you need to do is put in a benchmark allocation for a specific asset class. It is not a specific number, but a range that you plan on implementing at this time for the rest of the income year. So, for example, insert a range such as domestic cash 10% to 30%, which means the trustee will hold cash reserves at least 10%, but no more than 30% of the fund's asset, as these will be invested in one or more asset classes. Put 0% or not applicable in the box, does not apply. Remember, there's no right or wrong, simply what you expect to invest in over the next income year. From this, we can prepare a comprehensive investment strategy. So you're going to see this is what pops up effectively from our investment strategy. So you look at the asset, the key characteristics, which have been taken from large superannuation funds, characteristics where they do that. The reason we take that is that if it's good for the big guys, it's good for us. And we've got the trustee time frame, but there's no benchmark allocation because they would write that themselves. International, domestic fixed interest, domestic entities, international equities. We've got property, domestic, international, alternatives, and then we've got borrowing. This is the one that we see that is absolutely crucial, that it tends to be missed out. So if they send that back to you, then that gives you something to complete, which I'll now go just the last 10 minutes and we'll go into the Lightyear Docs site. You can see here, what have I done this morning? Okay, I did the deed of variation, which is what we were working on before. I've got because I'm an LY strategist, which is like a $5.95 or $7.95 a month. Effectively, I've just got unlimited documents, which is not a bad idea if you're going down that investment strategy. You want to complete investment strategies for the whole client base. But it seems to me to be pretty good if the Commission is now starting to take a lot more focused view on documentation. It's not a bad idea to look at upgrading deeds and also definitely doing investment strategies at the moment. If you need to get a sample of the investment strategy, just simply contact me at grant@ilovesmsf.com or support@lightyeardocs.com.au. So I'm just going to go to home. I find this is the easiest one to do. So you just simply write down investment. So you can go into one of the categories, investment, and it should pop up there. So I've got a superannuation unrelated investment trust. There's some great strategies around that, or I'm just looking at this. You'll start to see next week, so you can have a look at all the information, etc. But I'm going to start the document. So I can put it in the Abbott family. So this is, I'm just setting it up as a folder, and that pops into my Abbott family folder so that I can know I can pull it out and I can send this to you as a sample. So this has been generated. So what is the name of the fund? So I'll just look at the, I was going to put the Abbott one there, the Smith Family Super, and please don't laugh at my typing, it's pretty hopeless. So what date is the investment strategy? So let's say we go back. So we're starting from the 1st of July 2018. What is the end date of the current income year? So we can do 30. So this is a ratification of what went on last year. So if we go down and have a look, so that's the first point. Everyone got that one? Or alternatively, I could do it for the current year. I can do both. So the trustee, what I'll do is, most of you are using trustees. So I've got a whole lot of special purpose. You don't need to put proprietary because that's already in there. ACN, we are linking with BGL actually starting next week. So that will make it a bit easier. But as you can see, it doesn't really take that long to type things in. It's just the source of truth, and classes coming up in about 3 weeks. So I've got 2 directors here. As I said, if I had EPOAs and I've got 4 members of the fund, I could have just 1 director, even though I've got 4 members, particularly if I'm looking at a leading member fund. So again, I'll be looking at that on Thursday if you can come along to that session. I will send you an invite, but that's, look, if you've, the good thing about EPOA is you guys will actually be able to do it yourself. So please enter the meeting details. Now you're not going to do it. Leave it blank. We can come back to it. At what address is the trustee meeting? Well, because I've put in the 5 Smith Street, I just select that and that pre-fills it. Who's the chairman? Well, let's use John Smith. So we've got the trustee meeting, which will accept the investment strategy. Now we're building the investment strategy. So domestic cash, let's say we're pretty heavy on the in the property. So I'm going to use 90%. So let's go 5% to, well, let's say 40%, just in case we are going to sell. We got 0 there. Now, fixed interest, remember 0 or not applicable. 0 is better. Domestic equities. So let's go from here 0 to 20%. Because look, during the year, we may well sell out of a property and diversify into shares. We don't know. Someone might make a brilliant offer, so we put that in there as well. But 0 means we've got that. But can you see this is different? If you had 0 to 100% for all asset classes, and if you don't even have all these asset classes, then you're in a bit of strife. So let's go here and just go 60, because remember, we might sell out, go to cash and equity, up to 90%. Now, what I've done in this one is pretty important. Although we're talking about heavy duty, hardcore, 90% or single asset class, the commissioner, because of the breadth of the information that we're going for people who invest in property, and diversification applies even if you've just got a 50% property. What happens if it goes untenanted or it's in a fire, uninsured, etc.? So if it invests more than 50% of assets in property, tick yes. You can then choose which one. So let's say we're just going residential here, and then we go 60-90 there. International property, you can put in if you want. And again, you can see this follows all the direct quotes. That again, if you don't want to go down this track, honestly, you'll be able to sit down behind your computer, talk to your client. Okay, let's go through, work this out, build it together with them, or send out the questionnaire and the survey, and then they can come back to you. So now we're going to alternatives. That can include, for example, private equity, art, and all that. So let's say that we go 0 to 10%, and that's going to be in private equity. We can go to borrowing. So just on this one, I need to talk you through it. Please insert the loan to value ratio benchmark for the fund, not the asset. If it's not applicable, please leave as blank. What is the proposed level of borrowing in the fund? The loan to value ratio for the whole fund, not just a specific asset. For example, a fund may be worth $2 million, but borrowings for an LRBA is $200,000 on a $400,000 asset. The LVR of the fund is 10%. We advise that ranges be inserted as values move around. So in this case, 5% to 20%. So let's say we've got up to 90% in a residential property. We've got effectively a 70% LVR on that on our current borrowing. Remember, the underlying property is going up each year if it gets, well, hopefully gets valued. So rather than 70% of 90, which would be 63, let's start off at say 50, and this would change each year and take us up to 70, just in case we want to refinance, etc. So that's our borrowing. We could do a custom asset class. I'll just put that in here just to show you. So let's say we've got gold, and then we put in the characteristics. Gold is to be used as a hedge against the falling asset values of all other classes and is commensurate with cash. Well, that's okay. What's the trustee time frame? So let's say it's 5 to 10 years. What's the asset benchmark allocation? So let's say it's again 0 to 10%. So 10%. Okay, so that's my investment strategy, and we'll go down the track and we'll produce that. So again, I fiddled around with things, but only took me around about 5 minutes. In fact, that's the normal power for the course for all of our documents. They take you really quickly. One of my favourite ones is doing instalment warrants. You guys building that. Again, it's sophisticated, but it's also a lot of fun. So let me just download that. Sorry. And that should pop up. Where did it pop up? So I think that's the... Okay, so this is the investment strategy. It's a trustee questionnaire. So I'm not sure. Let me look up what happened up here. Download all documents. Oh, sorry, it is there. So I'm not sure what is happening with my documents. Sorry about that, guys. I have got one here that I did before. So, sorry. Allow. So sorry about that. Good old computer actually had a block on it. So sorry about that. So this is the one I just did, the investment strategy guidance statement. If you want, that's got our logo on it. But if you've got a program such as this, which is Nitro, all you have to do if you want to, it's not going to impact it, just remove this and paste over your own logo if you want to do that. So this is the investment strategy. There's the guidance statement. So again, it's not a PDS, a product disclosure, because we're not dealing with the Corporations Act. So I pulled a lot of this from my book, The Guru's Guide to Self-Managed Super Fund, going through all the relevant aspects, the CIS, how to make up an investment strategy. So again, this is something that for the client to have a look at. So we have a look at investment strategy per se. So we go through the scenario. The investment objective, which was required. Remember, we had a look at the Commissioner's letter. He said you need to have take into account investment objective. Now, I didn't copy the one from large funds because a lot of them say you get CPI plus 2%, which is crazy. So the fund's investment objective is the trustee via its investment strategy seeks to maximise the fund's members' retirement benefits, including income streams and lump sums, as well as maximising any death benefits if the members' superannuation benefits are not being used for pension purposes. So in that regard, what we're doing effectively is our goal is to maximise the members' retirement benefits, and our strategy should be for that purpose, for providing cash flow. Again, what's the background investment strategy? You've seen that. I mean, that's just Regulation 4.09. Investment strategy asset allocation. So we've got a bit of a blurb on that one. The issue of risk is really crucial. Borrowing. Now, if you've filled in the borrowing, remember I went to 40 to 70%. this pops up. So the trustee may elect to acquire investments such as property or shares using a limited recourse borrowing arrangement or self-funding instalment warrants. The trustee is aware that they elect to using a limited recourse borrowing arrangement or self-funding instalment warrants that they understand accept the risk involved in borrowing, such as return risk, impact of changes in personal circumstances, loss of assets, and regulatory risk. As the trustee decided to borrow with borrowings relevant to its specific borrowing assets of 50 to 70%, which a trustee has considered to be within its range of capabilities to service with cash flow coming from income of the assets and also proposed contribution fund members. Insurance have also been considered in the event that any employment or potential contributions are foregone in times of serious incapacity. Trustee intends to pay down its borrowings as quickly as possible. So if you haven't ticked the borrowing or you haven't gone down borrowings, then effectively that just generally comes up. Diversification to mitigate risk, which is a crucial one. Again, this comes up as a consequence of going through that, obviously choosing property. Investment strategy laws require the trustee of the fund to consider the use of diversification to reduce or mitigate risk in relation to holding specific asset classes and any underlying investment corresponding to that asset class. Diversification is best seen by the spread of a fund's portfolio across a broad mix of assets. At the other end, where a fund applies an assets allocation to 90 to 100% property with 0 to 10% cash, and this is exemplified by a single property, there is inherent risk that the property drops in value, cannot be tenanted, is impacted by natural or man-made disaster. More importantly, one member dies, gets divorced, blah, blah, blah. A fire sale of that property to meet the trustee's cash flow needs to satisfy members' requests can result in significant losses. So it means we are looking at the diversification. Importantly, the trustee understands that investment markets move in different cycles, reflecting the underlying strength of the economy. So this is a brand new thing that pops up if you click that over 50% rule. Industry trends in investor settlement. Individual assets can also move differently according to external factors. Diversifying your portfolio can help smooth out market ups and downs. The trustee of fund has decided to invest in residential property as long-term hold, 10 plus years. And although the asset allocation is significant, the contributions of members, the rents ensure the property is cash flow positive, with cash reserves to be diversified in the future. Regard has been had to the Reserve Bank Bulletin of September 2015 detailing long-term property trends in Australia. The trustees are comfortable, barring any immediate dust, the cash flows and member benefits will be increased over time to maximise retirement income through the holding of property. So I flipped it back by using the Reserve Bank. Oh, sorry, I put a typo there. I'll have to change that. Flipping it back on the investment objective. We've got balancing risk and returns there. You can see there we've got all of these major asset classes, etc., that we've put in there. We've got the fixed interest. Remember we went through and looked at this. We've got 0 to 20%. We've got 0% international equities. Remember we've got domestic property. Residential is 60 to 90%. If you choose industrial, commercial, etc. Remember I did the alternative, which is the private equity, and I've got gold. I've got insurances in the fund. Investment strategy and review. The trustee will monitor and review the investment activities on a regular basis, which is important. I've also got there, you'll see Appendix A, which is the long-run trends in housing price growth. So this is Bulletin 2015, and really, I'm not going to go into it. It goes for about 15 or 20 pages to give credence to the fact that by investing in, if you have a look at it, honestly, long-term for an SMSF, which is, I mean, not many people buy property in SMSF, you're 30 or 40, 50 years of age and then get rid of it in the next 2 or 3 years. I mean, it's a perfect compounding vehicle. So if you had a look at this, you'd think that the way they're arguing that Christ, everything should be in property. But we put that in there to give oomph there for the auditor and also any potential audit from the tax office. So that's the end of that. And then we go through the trustee man acceptance of funds investment strategy, so on and so forth. So it's, to me, it's 36 pages, but it's an extremely strong investment strategy. And likewise, even if we have a look at our ordinary investment strategy, which is 20 pages or so without the Reserve Bank Bulletin, again, that seems to me to be the benchmark standard where we should be looking at in terms of investment strategy. So that's available up on the Lightyear Docs site. As I said before, if you, just a couple of things just to close off, what I would suggest is we've seen the ATO letters. I've seen a couple of very dodgy investment strategies, 0 to 100% produced after year end. That's extremely dangerous. Put it back to the client, send those letters out. So you either got a choice, give them the questionnaire, and then from the questionnaire, because they've filled that out, You can then build the investment strategy on our platform. Alternatively, just send that questionnaire out saying this is what the cost is. You remember that letter, and get them to come back, but make sure they give you indemnity if they don't want to go through. Just a couple of things. We've looked at the investment strategy. As I said before, it's $99 a doc if you want to do the deed upgrade, which I suggest, and $49 just for investment strategy. But if you're charging $400 or so, that's a pretty good turnaround. If you are doing that, I would suggest you might want to go on our monthly. That way you can pump out as many as you want. I'd personally, if it was me, I'd be going through and doing all my client investment strategies through that case. And you can just buy a license office to do all documents unlimited for a year, alternatively just investment strategies, but feel free to come back. I think the main thing is make sure you come along to the strategies and the estate planning roadshow. You're going to be blown away. But look, that's where we are with investment strategies at the moment. I think we're really going up a bar here. I believe we're in a brand new situation where the ATO, this has been a very clever move by targeting one little sector. If you had a look at the auditor letter, it's now going to put pressure, particularly when we had a look at those two cases last year, Camden and McGoldrick, and where the auditor was sued for negligence and now can get sued under 55.3. It puts a lot more pressure on all investment strategies, the auditor, to look at all of them. As I said, if you produced, I don't know what you're doing with your current investment strategies, but if you produce this one that I just went through with Lightyear Docs, and you find that all your other ones aren't up to the same scale or speed, then I think you've got significant problems. But look, that's my solution to it. Client communications, be in front of it, don't get behind it. Fix it up. I showed you what to do if you haven't got one for the past year. Remember, strategies forward-looking, and also do 2 years in one. I think it's crucial. Then the next following year, all you have to do is just ratify those two and just say, look, there hasn't been any changes. But remember, investments go up and down, and we need to have those benchmarks. Anyway, if you've got any questions, just contact me. The best details for us is, here we go. Best ones are support@lightyeardocs.com.au. If you want to get me on Skype, just go SMSF Buddha, lightyeardocs.com.au. If you haven't utilised our system yet, there's no cost to actually start it. Should each Jana, I think that's so cool, it sounds like my daughter's name. Should each SMSF have their own investment strategy, not just a generic one? Absolutely. So a generic one is not an investment. If you had a look at 55, it's not a generic one, 0 to 100%. If they can show, if the members can show that the trustees produced a generic strategy, if an auditor can show that it's just one that's been used across the board, then effectively you're in real strife, because that is not an investment strategy. Hence, when we go through and we have a look at the one that I produced, that is tailor-made for each and every specific client. So it's absolutely crucial there that we don't do a generic. There's danger. Either don't do it at all, or give the client the benchmark, and you can come back and reduce it later. Remember, it's not a financial product, and then charge them. And if they don't want to pay the fee, get an indemnity for them. It's absolutely crucial. So anyway, I'll get this up, and it'll be up a little bit later this afternoon for you to download, and you'll find it up on the support centre. Anyway, thank you for that session. It was a little bit more detailed than the past one, but I love getting legislation, and we'll see you hopefully at the roadshow. It's Grant Abbott signing off.